Okay, this is David Bright. I'll call this meeting to order. It is Wednesday, August 31st. This is a special meeting of the Property Reuse Committee. First order of business is to do the roll call. Myself, Councilor McBride is present. Other councilors? Councilor Scott Westervelt is present. Councilor Portia Bordelon is present as well. First order of business is public comment. First public comment. Would you like to take
my public? I'm actually signed here from the planning commission. So maybe
okay,
public, maybe
that
not.
the planning commission, that meeting is September 7th. There must have been miscommunication.
Yes, apparently.
Yeah, because so
Which is
just
okay because then like it's a public comment.
yeah, certainly. I mean, you're welcome to comment now.
Okay, fine.
The plan that we developed was we've had a few meetings. In this meeting, we were going to be a working meeting. We're going to try to fine tune the document, complete the document, and then post the document in order for the planning and zoning and yourself and EDC and others to come out on the 7th meeting.
But that's for the planning and zoning. We'll be doing a complete package. I was supposed to represent it as an individual.
Okay, great.
So
Okay,
I'm somewhere in between the two.
understood.
And so the only thing I'll bring up in public or whatever I am is that I have no issues with the document as it stands right now. It's one thing that might be extraneous to it or could be within it, which is the time factor.
I would just state your name and everything for the record.
Good point.
Yeah,
Okay, so,
just so we don't be talking.
right. So I'm Hal Zod. I'm representing for the Planning and Zoning Commission. And if I'm in the public, then I'm at 140 High Meadow Lane. Yes. When this happens, it's not covered in this, so as long as it does happen. My only issue with it is, for example, the school task force finished up in 2016. At that point, we knew which buildings were going to be demolished or at least emptied. And in 2016, it was a done deal. We knew we weren't going to want those for the school anymore. And 5.5 years later, we managed to start to talk about what we want for the Claude Chester School, which is part of this process. So I'd like to propose that somewhere either in this or as a preamble to it, we work in that at such a time that a task force or other thing comes up that provides for eliminating the use of a building, immediately it should kick off this process. Certainly, some of the things that would come out of starting this process would affect other decisions, such as if we came up with better things to do with half of the property, would that let the school board know, hey, our use is secondary to this, or maybe we can fold into the other use of the property rather than it be all or none until years go by. So I'd rather see, if we're going to decide at some point that we might not want a property, even if we're not sure, the next step is, well, if we don't, then what would we do? And that's this process.
Okay, great points. Anything else? All right, thank you, Hal. Any questions of Hal on his points?
No, I can agree with that. I think that's. We're gonna get some feedback. Can you hear me now? Did you fix it?
It's down, but I can still hear you. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I think that's great. As a person who served on the council for several terms, one of the big problems was, all of a sudden the vacating of buildings, no plan. Some of these buildings would sit there for years with no direction. And at one point I sat on a small committee with the former mayor, Brenatowski and John Burt, and we drafted this quick notes, which is some of what's in here, because I was shocked and appalled that there was no plan. As a person who was not involved initially, I always thought, why are these buildings just sitting here? And as I got involved, I realized more that there was not a process or a plan. And that makes buildings deteriorate and things sit over time. And I really, one of the reasons I made this referral to this committee, to the town council, was to sit down and hash this stuff out so that we have exactly that plan. And I really respect what you say. And I think that that is definitely an important piece of this. And I feel that that should be added. And I definitely will write that in my notes. So, and if you could just submit that in an email, you may have already, I'll go looking for it, but that way I can cross-reference it later. It'd be appreciated. And thank you for coming out.
Great, thank you, Al. We will move on to the next order of business, which is public comments. We did receive an email, since we're in Zoom. Well, see if I can do this. This is from Robert Frank. I won't read the whole thing. I will include it in the minutes for backup.
It's not casting onto my screen.
What's that?
That means like it's probably just going from here to there, but it's not coming up on a live feed.
Okay, thank you. How is that portion? Good.
Sorry, just making sure it is up. You're up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so this is some comments that were submitted by Robert Frank on August 23rd. I don't know if I should read the entire thing. I will include it in the minutes, though. He had some good points on requests for ideas. In summary, from reading through it, he'd like to add some provisions in the document to have requests for ideas prior to the RFP process. I think the ideas are pretty solid. I think we all received the email. Maybe we can discuss it further once we get into the document. That was his main component that I read through it, but I will include it in the minutes. He talked about unused town property. Seems to be the first step. He also talks about surplus town property, and he mentions how the town has assets, vehicles, shares, and surplus town property. And there's something that goes to the town council for approval and disposal. And I think what he's indicating is we should be doing the same thing with this. And I kind of agree. We've had discussions on it. I will talk about it tonight. I did email Town Manager Burt some information on getting more data like we spoke about last time, but I did receive some information that it's difficult to do. So we're kind of in a hybrid on how to move forward with that. But I do think it's important to include that. And he talks about the town council, making sure they're involved in the RFP process, making sure they approve the process, making sure they approve the questions and so forth. And I'll include this in the meeting minutes, but we all have received it and reviewed it. And we'll take it into consideration for tonight's agenda. No other public comments. Has anyone else received any public comments?
Yeah, could you just share the email about what they couldn't do that you stated? Because I found that a little bit arbitrary in nature. There's pretty much nothing you can't do. It's a matter of sitting down and doing it. And what we requested, I just wanted to, just so the public knows like what the response was.
Yeah, I'll share that as we get into the document because it's going to be part of the document review.
Well, can you send it, share it under communications
I can bring it.
as the first look?
I'm gonna have to find it first. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do it later, Portia. But I will share it. So next, any other communications? Anyone else received? No. Portia, anything else?
Nothing that you haven't stated.
Okay. Next is the approval of minutes. And I know Portia had some comments. So
Yeah, Mike, I don't feel like I'm being, so I'll take the floor here. I don't feel like I'm being properly represented. If you go back and watch the live meeting, which is what I did right before coming here again, Councilor Bordelon, in this note, it says Councilor Bordelon explained her dissatisfaction with this and indicated that town property should be listed and then prioritized, as that was what she believed one of the main objectives of the committee was. That's not exactly what I said. In fact, what I said, the main objective, since it was a referral of mine, that, kind of after the data centers, Wrestler, and many other properties, the schools, I had identified in my mind a concern and a glitch in our town where I felt that there wasn't an interlocking connection between planning and zoning, town staff, direction of economic development. It seemed like everyone had their views and somehow they weren't working kind of together. And so you can go back from the meeting if you'd like and get my exact quote. But basically here in my quick notes that I have, it says the main objective of this group is to establish a clearly defined process. I didn't want a list of properties and priorities. I wanted a process to be defined. And I wanted that to be clear on the record. The reason that I felt this was needed is that the process was failing, lacking, and not transparent. So I would just like to, I can send you an email if you'd like my exact quote from that, but I just don't think that that properly represents it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to recommend. I mean, these are the minutes I drafted up. You obviously have comments on them, so feel free to email me any changes you have, Scott. We won't take this up tonight for review. We'll review it at the next meeting. But just email both of us so we have it, and I'll revise the draft minutes after reviewing the tape to make sure they're in sync with what was said. So please do that, and we'll review these minutes at the next meeting.
Okay.
There's no need to revise right now. It seems like you have substantive comments that I don't really want to take the time to make the changes, but they are important to get in, so please send them. Sound like a plan?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. All right, so we'll push that to the next meeting. Now, old business. So this is, see, originally, the one thing you're requesting, I'm gonna have to pull this email up. Bear with me a second. I have it written, but that's not printed. Well, I can read it. I'll read it and then I'll include it in the minutes. This is back to Portia's question regarding, I said the chair of the property reuse committee, I'm sorry, this is from John Burt to Noah Feldman. The chair of the property reuse committee is asking about updating the earlier spreadsheet showing all town-owned properties by adding a field for the type it is in parens, school, park, small adjacent to resident, et cetera. Is this something you are able to do? He responds back, Noah Feldman, easier said than done. Short answer is probably no. Long answer is, I think a lot of it is kind of an eye of the beholder. I mean, a school, municipal building, or an established park is pretty straightforward, but a random empty parcel is going to cause problems. And these are probably the very ones that the council is most interested in. This is something I've been working on with planning for over a year now, and we haven't made much progress. Is it a park? Is it open space, watershed protection? Is it something the town is holding on to for others, some purpose? And what purpose would that be? In any case, I don't think there's actually agreement within the department. And it gets even uglier when you ask assessment, planning, public works, and parks and rec to look at the same parcel and tell me what they see. 4 different answers, not to knock anybody. This is really a hard thing. I've been hoping we could get something definitive put together before the next POCD, but as of now, I'm not sure I or anyone else can answer this. So we have a quagmire because we all desire that spreadsheet with the details and I guess the use of what that use is for, right? And this is from the administration stating they can't do it right away. So I think we need to work with John Burr and the team to get this completed, but I don't think it sounds like they're going to do this overnight. But I do think it's a goal that we, and I think the council hopefully will also, because we're adding that, and jump in, correct me, we're adding that to the agenda, to the plan. We were adding in, include the property listing and include the maps, right? So if we're in concert and we want to make sure that property listing that we had a month ago was included with a category that states what that is, whether it's a park or whether it's municipal or whether it's adjacent to, 42 Beacon Street, whatever it is, we want that as part of the document. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a no-brainer, and I think that, I don't know how we've operated all these years without having some defined document. I think it's extremely important, at minimum, to start, develop land used by municipalities. That's pretty straightforward. undeveloped land, unknown use. Open space, we have open space here, property that's defined to not be developed, we know that. That would just be jotted, like, I don't think it's as hard as it's seeming to be. I mean, I could take a list of all the properties and probably, you throw them into a thing and just start plugging them. It'd also be nice to have it state what they're zoned as. I mean, since that was some of the problems before, is all this, floating zone and TIF zone, adding that in there that's been defined. Also adding in, looking at the rest of the property in the data centers, industrial. The property should be defined also what their current planning and zoning usage requirements currently state. And I think that's just really important because council turns over every 2 years if they choose, or, don't become reelected. And I think we do not have a process for incoming people that are hired help, that are elected help, to really kind of gauge where those properties are and what they're meant to be used for. With that, I don't think that this grid doesn't mean it's set in stone. I think it should be ever evolving. I think as new properties come on, like the Wolfbrook property that we just voted about, we have another vote, so it's not permanent, it's not definite yet, we have one more vote. But that is gonna be open space, 160 something acres. We know what that is. That should be updated if this document was done. We would add Wolfbrook property in there and what its current state usage is. So that is definitely something that the town should strive to have. And I think it really helps to see. Also, it helps with, one of the things I have trouble with is being proactive versus reactive. I feel that at times we're more reactive, oh, a building's being vacated, what are we gonna do? School's leaving. If we kind of have this list to find out, when that starts to happen, we can kind of look, oh, it's zoned as this. This is what it is, this is the acreage, you're able to kind of go to that quick chart and reference it. So I really hope that the town seeks to get this completed.
Is it a problem on the spreadsheet? So maybe the only problem is the way the spreadsheet is. In that, I think I agree completely, but if there's dispute, planning thinks it's one thing, somebody else thinks it's something else. Why can't both of those things be on the spreadsheet? You can have 5 different things, and then that will get resolved over time as the open space from Wolfbrook becomes the park of Pequot Woods or whatever that's going. And then you start knocking away at some of these things. But it's quite possible some of these things do have multiple uses. Certain one thing they're being used as something else, they're part of something else. All things are true. And as far as we're concerned, I don't know if we care. We just need to be able to address all of them.
Yeah, I think we agree. I think we're all on the same page. I'm not sure if you have any comments, Councilor. On any-
No, I was going to agree. Part of what you said during your public comments kind of gelled with what Councilor Bordelon was saying, in that this process needs to start as soon as we identify the property, and what as soon as we identify a property that may be going up for reuse, and having your comments incorporated with what Councilor Bordelon said, that the spreadsheet should give us options for what is available. I think that all kind of joins together.
All right, so when we review the
Having
document,
multiple fields in that, I mean, there's no spreadsheet can be as big as you need it to be. If 5 people have different ideas for what it needs to be, we can take each one. We could take each one for what it's worth and analyze it, and that way we don't miss anything.
It's a spreadsheet, so maybe it'd be tough to look at, but you could have a column for each. The business environment. The fire district could be in there. They think it's something else. Well, it might be something to them.
yeah, it'll be a working process. But the point is to start the process, to have the spreadsheet, get what we want in there. So as we get to that in the document, we'll have to add that because currently it's not in our most recent version. So we'll get to that.
Also, it would also help as a developer, if I was coming in, this would be a public document where one could quickly reference on our town website. That's what you want, is usability, feasibility, flexibility, and just kind of an open platform. And so having a document like this, if I was looking to buy a piece of land in Groton, I could go on here and look at what the town owns and what their plans are, or kind of get a direction if I want to buy or another piece of land somewhere near it, because they're going to be doing this. What is it zoned at? A lot of us don't have the time to go in all these different documents. Having one master document would really help, and I think it would, and even if it's a slow change, maybe they only load all the properties first that don't have any building structures on it, right, to start. And then we throw in, other buildings, but it could be like, just even if 10 load, and then the next meeting we have 30, just to have something to get going, I think really would help us, and really, I'll speak for myself, would really help me as a counselor when a property is presented to me in an executive session or in a meeting, open forum, that I can quickly look at that and say, oh, it's got wetlands, it's zoned this, it's located here, it's got some brownfields, also that stuff, knowing, I mean, in some of the meetings, they were like, forgot about the brownfield over there next to the old massage school. And we were saying, oh, and when I found that out, I said, we've been trying to get money to go after that. So I just think it would be nice, because I think we lose track, and it really could set us in the right direction.
I just want to make sure we're not waiting till it's resolved as to what it is. It's a pile of stuff is what it is. So.
I just wanted to make one more comment that having it as a public document, if I'm a contractor and I have access to this document and it has entities that have these concerns, or this is what they think they were targeted, that I can go to those individuals to get my information. It would give me direction as opposed to having me just contact, try to find it myself.
Okay. All right, all good points. I think next is really what we're here for, is we're going to dig into the most recent document, review it, add comments. I'm going to make changes based upon your comments, my comments, and we're going to try to refine this document as best as we can. So I will share the screen with the current. Yeah. Where'd it go? All right, so this is the current version that we have. Now, this should have, I think this is the current version. Yeah, so it's not this part that I was just on, it's starting here. Proposed draft changes, it would be page 3 on what you have in your electronic version. So these are some of the changes we made. Not sure if anybody has any changes. We'll go through paragraph by paragraph. I don't have any recommended changes on the purpose or the goals from what we've come up with. I'm not sure if either one of you have any comments on those two segments.
I can't see that, or I'm not sure which version, because I have a bunch of versions. I just want to make sure.
I want to make sure that the first one says promotes resiliency and sustainability in purple that I had added.
That's correct.
So that is on the, okay.
Yep, this is the current version. That has
Okay,
everyone's
I see it
ads.
there now. Sorry about that.
No, it's no problem.
And then number 3, I made an edit to as well.
Yeah, your edits are in purple, so you will see them on the screen.
So I can't,
My edits were made prior in
you know what?
red.
I can't define the purple up there. That's what I'm having trouble with, I must say. That's not good. Can you see it?
It is kind of difficult. It is.
Yeah. I can see it on my screen here. So I do have, yeah. Thank you. If I ask, that's why I can't, I'm having trouble defining.
Feel free to ask anything. So again, I don't have any comments on purpose or goals from this draft. Anyone else?
Would it be appropriate to goals? Okay, enhance quality, Groton. Hold on 1 second, bear with me. Yeah, I might have an edit to that one, but I'll wait on it.
Okay. So next on the decision of disposition of town or property. I guess now I'm backing up because my edits prior to this, I did make some edits on between these two areas. I had put in a segment about town-owned property listing as of a certain date, and the attached listing can be utilized. Is this where we want to include what we're talking about? So I'm gonna, maybe this will be easier if I break it up.
Are you talking about adding, like, having that document like spreadsheet?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Well, I'm gonna, I can't find it here. It's probably easier. I'm just gonna type from my initial. Bear with me here.
Like even the word town green, do we have anything in our town that's really defined as a town green? Other than, which I found out that I didn't know was our town property. If for my research, the only town green that we technically have is in Old Mystic. Where the flagpole is, that is town property, and that is identified as a town green. And, I know if someone had gotten the emails, from folks in town, but, about the care and mowing of it, and coming to find out, currently people didn't even know that we owned that as a town, and then the town manager, was directing to tell the neighbors to stop mowing it, and that they would take over the responsibility. Something like having a draft form of all of our properties and edit it as we get them would be amazing. And I'm wondering, I'm gonna keep researching, is that Old Mystic our only town green?
Not aware of any other.
I don't think there is.
Why we didn't work one.
Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting, that is our first and only town green that I'm aware of in the town of Groton.
Historically, that's kind of nice to check.
It is. But we didn't even know we owned it under the current oversight. We didn't- Some people didn't know we owned it. It wasn't being cared for by the town. I should have moved in there with a tent to claim the property. No, kidding. It's kind of a cool piece. I don't know. That'd be interesting to know. No, I don't know. I mean, the research I found, that was only town green, but yeah, what is that one? Yeah. And is the one in Old Mystic the oldest town green that we have? Yeah, I think.
Since all it's Mystic, so.
Well, I think it was owned by the nursing home that used to be over there, and the person that sold gave the land to the town of Groton, if I read the records right. Yeah. It's interesting, so, anyway. Yeah.
All right, so I apologize for the delay, but this is some of the wording from the initial thing we reviewed, a few months ago. Town-owned property listing as of a certain date. The attached, I guess it would be the attached listing can be utilized as a starting point towards a review of evaluating if the town should consider utilizing some of its property for another use. A map depicting where the major property should also be included. So think of that, any comments you want to make or changes, but that's trying to get us to that point of this document should have the property listing and a map of the major property. So we can refine it over time, but we did want to include that in here.
And I also think it's important to, if we're deeded any, like, I don't know if I'm using the right words. I know people, not to bring up old things, but it's important. That's why we're here. Folks were concerned when the middle school went up and the way that that property was gifted to the town in a manner. So I think it really is also important to add in this document, where did the property come from? Such and such, donated this property to be used for athletic fields. I think it should be, like clear in there and when we also, came into possession of these property and how. You shouldn't have to go through all these chronological documents to find it. And I think that's where we spend more time digging than, but it would be great to know that the family of blah donated this property in 1979, to be used as.
So let's take that a step further. Good point. So the listing that they provided to us did have did have the address, the property ID, the owner, and it did have the zoning, and it did have the zoning class. So it did have some information, but
Yeah.
maybe we should add to this. The listing should contain.
How it was acquired.
Well, want to make a list of a few things. The listing should contain important information, including the following. Important information, including the following. And what do we want there?
I would say how it was acquired.
and I'll make this look better later, but for now, what is relevant aside from what's in addition that we already have?
Can you just read what they have on there again already? I don't have that piece in front of me, I don't think.
Yes,
Sorry.
the object ID.
Yeah.
The jurisdiction, so the district, the property ID, the property location, the owner, calculated acres, the zoning, and the class of zoning, all commercial.
Anything, if there's any contamination on the sites, like if there's any brownfields or that's, you know, we might not find them until after, but if we know already, it would be nice to.
Conditions, you were saying conditions attached.
All right, so this is an area we can probably hone in on, but we all agree we want to make the listing, provide the map. We just need to spell out the details of what we want to do, how we want to add there. So I'm just going to put et cetera, but we can comment after this meeting on any other thing we want to include in there. But the point is, we want to.
Does that list that you have there tell us if there's any wetlands or if it's close to a water?
Yeah, it tells us on, we do.
It doesn't tell us if it's a wetland, does it?
I think it will. Well, we can add that if it doesn't.
Because I think that's important to.
Make sure.
Yeah, so if there's any. Wetland.
And this is a good starting point, but again, on the 7th, when we bring this out, we're going to get planning and zoning to get more comments,
Yeah.
EDC, so we'll be able to really refine this.
And then
But
if
it's a good
it's
start.
deeded in any way, like I said, if the property's left, like if I was to donate property for X use, despite what the zoning says, there might be already stricter regulations. So if there's any other restrictions to that property, that should be defined as well.
Okay.
I don't know how you can phrase it, but it's something that might actually come up. Because in my neighborhood, we end up with 2 or 3 little pieces of property left over, one considerable size, that the original developer never completed turning it over. One set was supposed to turn over to residents, not to be used for anything, and the other turned over to the town. The developer ceased to exist. So the town's solution to that was, all up worth nothing, and so there's no taxes, and just don't worry about it. It's wonderful, it's an open space, it's surrounded by property. In their deeds, it doesn't, the deeds say each one of their properties has a shared interest. I'll just get that out. It's a shared interest, but no one knows what that means. So it just kind of sits there and I read that. But my guess is there's probably a lot of things like that, where the original owner or developer ceased to exist and now it's in limbo. Just be handling the property. I don't know how we address that.
Okay, we'll take that into consideration. All right, so next area, decision on disposition of town property process. I want to take a read through there. I have a few suggestions or comments. I'm wondering if, I think later on in the document, I'm not sure if it was Portia or you, Scott, but you talk about the committees or setting up a new committee. And you mentioned, certain RTM members, councilors, whatever. I'm wondering if this piece here, when we set up we'll establish a town-owned property evaluation tow committee, should we at this point say consists of members of council, EDC, PZ staff? Because isn't it this committee we want to make sure is detailed and thought, because this is the key introductory committee that starts the process. So do we want to add them here?
Yeah, I mean, what I was thinking when I wrote that was, outside, like we're tasked with trying to write something. I think having stakeholders that are always meeting, because you can't get the whole council, you can't get all of planning, but if there's a committee that's tasked with this.
Yeah, diverse.
I think it really could do us some justice, and they could also be helping the town with that document, right, as new properties come on, or, someone from planning and zoning might say, oh, that property that's on there now is zone this, it just might open up that dialogue and have, I think property in this town is an economic driver, and it needs to have its committee of key stakeholders working together, can always, not when just one property comes up and we're ready to sell it. We should be, like, again, being proactive versus reactive, right? We should have everything written and ready when we're ready to fire off on something.
So we're in agreement, we should add, and again, I'm not gonna worry about my spelling here, we'll deal with this later, but I think we're in agreement, we're gonna add, you mentioned key stakeholders.
Yeah.
The committee consists of key stakeholders, including the following, and we can work on the specifics, but, one or two counselors, whatever it is.
Do you want to turn that a different color from the black? Maybe
Yeah.
like if that's something we discussed in committee, maybe make it a different color, like if we're brainstorming together,
Sure.
make it, I don't know.
How's that? I'll dress it up for the final one. RTM, right, EDC, P and Z. Do we want some local resident participation on this as well?
Well,
Or
I
staff?
think there should be a key component where if there's any major changes that there's just at least a public presentation.
Well,
when
that
they-
we do have.
Yeah,
in
when they
the
collaborate.
future.
But I do think that, if we're hiring and paying for a resilience and sustainability person, they should be on that committee if we're gonna be paying them. Didn't we vote on money for hiring a? Yeah, so I think, wouldn't you think they should be on there?
So integral staff,
I'm sorry?
integral staff or something like that.
The new resilience and sustainability coordinator.
Do you want to pinpoint an individual position?
Well, because we're only gonna have one, right? Yeah, so he or she represents just that. They're hired to help us be, manage, climate change, and I think that's a key part of properties, and I think that they could be a.
And what about any other staff such as planning and development? That's why I wonder if we don't want to put it, we don't want to fine tune it now.
Well, that's why I think that resilience and sustainability person should be on there.
What's the title again, Horst?
Resiliency and number one on our objectives. At the top of goals, that person there. Yeah, I don't know if they call him a coordinator, him or her, but that position.
Yeah, I'll work on the spelling there. And I'll say planning and development staff. Again, it's open-ended, it's nothing's formal.
Right.
But the point is, we want active participation. Do we want
And there should be,
residents?
I think there could be a couple of people, that could be a board and commission, couldn't it be, where somebody could apply to be on there? Or they have to change the whole chart. I don't know how that comes to light. Is that something that the council could say they'd like, 2 members?
Yeah, I think the way we have it set up is it's going to go through the Personnel and Appointments Committee, so you could put residents on there.
Is that, do you guys know how? Yeah, I think.
Because we have a different district. I don't think we can divide up one where someone who is from an entirely different part of the town may not have as much interest in serving for this group of properties.
No.
I don't know if that's a fair statement.
Right, and then sometimes we can't even get people to fill boards and commissions. So it might be that, this committee might call upon 2 residents from a district where it's directly affecting. So for example, if I was part of this group as a town councilor, I would say, okay, this thing, wrestler or data center, it's affecting District 5. I then would say, we need to put out the feeler that we need we're looking for a few people, constituents that live in that area to come to our meetings and voice their concerns and work with us. As a standing committee, I don't know, but if there was a property or an issue or something coming up, I think that they should bring around people from that district.
They're adding ad hoc members as,
Yeah.
as appropriate for the local issue.
Right.
And your, I think your own members might get to have a look at identifying.
Well, usually, I mean, as we unfortunately know that things start to kind of happen and, you know, not my yard, not my day, you know, and so people do rise up. So people will know, folks will know, I think, you know, when there's, and being more public, I think at the beginning, right? That's the other thing I was going to add in the top goals is to have a more open dialogue with our community and more community involvement. And I can add at the next meeting. I think that ties into that because, you know, I think when we had some of the stuff going on here, had we had this group and this committee and people that live in that area as part of the decision making, you know, it would have helped. So I don't know how to word that, but I think having it, like you said, an ad hoc, because I think when you have the people around the table that it's mostly affecting, then you have progress. It takes away the back and forth, and you can get work done because they will be the spokespeople for that community, and people in that area will reach out to them directly.
Okay, good. So we've added that. We had some of your comments previously, and I don't think there's any other comments through E on this page. Any other thoughts or comments?
The first time, I'm sorry, I didn't think of this earlier, but since I got to read this yesterday. Has it already been, is it long-standing about the Pope? That the name?
No, I just took those letters, town-owned property.
I'm good with making the acronym.
Yeah.
What I'm thinking of is we're doing something here, which is, I think is wonderful, but it's something that we don't have yet, which is a cross-departmental group. It could be handy for other things. And if you don't call it quite that as specific, and just call it an interdepartmental evaluation group or some other thing. I'm not suggesting that is the name, but something like that, that isn't quite as specific. It's still the reason to develop it, we did here. But other things could come up where in one flash, they could just say, well, why don't we just turn it over to the interdepartmental group? And then we wouldn't have a wrestler. Some of it could short stuff, some things like that.
Well, I think their hope is this document can be utilized in other ways down the road if it shows broad participation of how we're pursuing things. I mean, that's the goal. I mean, I think, you know, not just with this committee, but other committees. So I take your point
I
totally.
think there won't be a whole lot of reason to do this. And if we're already going to meet once every 3 months. I think there might be some. That's not the task of this group, I understand that, but I would hate to see it limited by name.
Sure, understood. Yep, good point. All right, so we'll move on to the next page, comments. So I'm going to read through this, give some thoughts.
Can you scroll back up just a little bit more?
Sure.
I just wanted to see how is the property. Okay, yeah. All right.
Good. The one thing I'd like to add or think about, consider is call it 3.5. And this gets back to the comments we received from, I forget who it was, Robert Frink, I think, where he talks about an RFI process, where, and I'm just going to summarize his points. He calls for an RFI process where you call for ideas, you widen the net of getting some thoughts from individuals. I can't read my handwriting completely. But what he's proposing, I think it has some merit, is before you go to the TOP committee, do this RFP, you submit an RFI where you request all the information out. You work with the town council, you present questions on what the town is looking for, and you really send this out to the community, and then you get feedback on what they think, kind of what they did with Colchester. I mean, that's why with Colchester, it wasn't an official RFI, but it was a public hearing on, to get as much information as you can before the RFP process. Because I think this goes right to RFP, right? So I don't know if you have any thoughts on, kind of fine tuning, submitting, getting additional feedback before we go to RFP.
I mean, I definitely think it's helpful to, I think one of the things I don't want to get into is making any plans or ideas that something can be rezoned or flipped, too early without it going, with the planning and zoning and other stakeholders around the table first. When a developer comes in and it looks at a property as its own, any drastic change to that, there should be a major process, and it should be, the developer should be made aware that this might take a long time. It's not going to be a quick turnover. So I'm not sure how to word it, but I do think that there needs to be more done on the front end, and that way on the back end, we're not realizing later that. But I also understand that when you're purchasing a property, there is, it is kind of classified in nature, right? Because when you go to buy a home, we all can't know that we're all bidding on the same home. So there's got to be a way where some of this is done, that negotiation. So I'm not sure with the committee how much information would they be privy to beforehand, and that's something to think about. But I think having this document, one of the things that I feel is always missing is not having everything down so I know where we're going as a town. If you look at Groton, it does look kind of like, okay, you have this over here, and then, oh wait, what's that? There's no defined beginning, middle, and end. It's kind of scattered. Oh, we're in, zone this town, and oh, there's a building, oh, there's a house, And over time, I don't think there's been a good catch or handle on it. And so I really think this document that we talked about at the beginning of the meeting would also help us kind of see what is our direction. We'd be able to take that document and kind of see versus a developer comes in and says, I want to build this. And it's like, does that fit our mission? Or do we want that land for something else if it's our own land? Also, my other thought, and I'm not sure how to write this in here too, and I've been thinking about it, is when it goes out to RFP, a lot of the ones that have been going out lately have been apartments and housing, and supposedly the need of needing apartments and things for EV keeps being restated. But what's our master plan for the town, right? That stuff needs to be worked out too. And I think having this gridded chart and also really having a handle on, I know before I was a counselor, they talked about TIF district, and they talked about the Quantic, village area. And I had to go back and revisit those notes from 3-4 years ago, but current counselors weren't part of a council then. And I just think that master plan needs to be somewhere written, and someone needs to be following it, right? As staff change over, as elected officials change over, what is Groton's master plan? And so somewhere I hope that we can include that in here. This group would be tasked with really sitting down with the stakeholders and coming up with a plan so that we are not giving away property or selling property that we really realize later that we may need. And what is our direction? I mean, does every property that we have need to go up for sale? I'm not saying it doesn't, but I mean, really kind of breaking it down a little bit more. And that's something else that doesn't seem to happen.
All right, those are good comments, Portia. I'm just wondering if what you're saying should be part of the goals. Because it sounds like what you're saying is this should align with the town's long-term strategic plan.
It's a
So
long-term strategic plan and vision.
maybe it should be part of the goals of this.
Right.
I mean, I don't even embarrassed to say, but I don't know. I haven't seen a long-term strategic plan. So I don't know. I know they did one when they did the Paquonic Bridge.
Yeah,
area.
Conservation development. does. Pretty clearly, when you get back to the 30,000 down, and just think of the areas, it's pretty clear on where things should be.
Okay.
So as far as the Planning and Zoning Commission's Bible is, it's pretty clear where things need to be. It's a little foggy where there was a school, so it was zoned for a school. Okay, now we don't know what to do, but we've got the surrounding zone. It shouldn't be a shopping center, it's a school. So there shouldn't be any surprises. So there's little bits and pieces of things that we're going to divest ourselves that don't necessarily. And that was the open door oral school. I think we all agree that the reason it was zoned because it already existed as it was. And now maybe it could be changed, but it changed drastically in terms of what the entire town is planning. We already have a plan for the entire town. That was actually what killed it. In the town, that wasn't the plan. The plan was the dense part of town is what we think of as downtown. Even though it doesn't look that way, that's what it's zoned for. Now, physically what it would look like, we're not too good at that. We actually had some graphics when I first got here. A dozen years. It used to actually have some graphics of here's what we want to flesh it out. That's too little dangerous, as much as I love that kind of thing, but it's hard to put down and say, well, here's why I want 5-story buildings, here's why I want 7-story buildings. But the zoning actually provides for that. It actually kind of indicates here's where taller buildings can go, here's where more dense buildings can go. So I think we're actually covered in our existing plans without necessarily doing that because the plans aren't contrary to any of this. I don't know if it says it on there. The goals don't directly talk about what we already have. So maybe it needs to do that.
Yeah, I also.
We have a plan of conservation and development.
Yeah.
That's one of the goals is to
Right.
comply with or to continue the work of something like that of plan of conservation and development, which sought to do all the things for the town.
And I respect that because that's definitely the conservation. I'm big on environment and resiliency and sustainability and coastal runoff and wetlands and our water ledge. And I mean, gosh, but I guess what I'm saying, and when you look at it from there, you can see the zoning. But what I'm looking for is like when you buy a house, so like when I bought my house, I knew there was going to be repair. So I said, oh, the furnace has got to be done in 5. I'm staring down a new roof in 10. I don't like this walkway. I'm going to put some steps in. I'd like to put up a wall here, and you kind of plan your life a little bit. You kind of do your little developments, right? Or whatever it is, or you space out, I'm going to go on a trip, whatever it is. What I don't see for the town is the big vision within what you said, like big buildings can go here. What does Groton want to do? When you go in other town pages, you can kind of say, I know London just built a youth community center. That was a big deal. I don't see in writing that fits that conservation and that zoning plan, what we as a town, not just us here, everybody wants. So like, for example, Mary Morrison, as they call it, it's on mothballs, they're holding it just in case there's an influx of students, they can put that one back online. But eventually that one could be coming down as a property to us. It's a big piece of land. If it doesn't go back online, this group that we're creating should already be thinking, what could we put there? Not just what's the resiliency and the sustainable and the conservation, which are very important, but also the idea of not necessarily what we can sell it for and have someone come develop. What is our plan for the town of land that we need moving forward in the next 20 years? What is our 10-year, 5-year, 20-year plan? Every town should have one. Every homeowner should have one. And, if we plan to build a community center, I know we have the Fitch Middle. I'm just throwing out an example. Maybe Morrison property is a great property to use that. I'm not saying that's what I'm recommending. I'm just simply saying that I'd be thinking that because I'm looking at our master plan of what we feel we need here to grow Groton into, later down the road. That's not necessarily economic development and development of the town. I just don't want this document to be town land that we plan to sell, only. It should be land that we might be wanting to invest in to take online, like SP Butler or or Mary Morrison, because we found a need. And I think we should be making sure our need is addressed somewhere early in the document before you get rid of land, because once it's gone, you can't get it back. So I understand that there's a resiliency and a sustainability and conservation, and there's a zoning, but I also need to hear from the town bullet points of where does the council, where does the town, where does the stakeholders see ourselves in 10 years? What are our goals? Do we want a town green? Okay, where? You know, and that stuff should be mapped out so that when land becomes available, like Claude-Chester, S.T. Butler, man, we're not like, oh, how about a town green? Everyone gets excited, we're running around. We should have a plan. What else do we need in the town of Groton? There might be more things that, you know, I'm all about making money to cut the tax base, but I also don't want to get rid of land that future generations here could use, and we could be holding on to use it in a way that would be productive to grow the town. I don't know, I'm just, and it could be something as simple as a parcel of land becoming available next to the water treatment facility, and we realize, wow, we're gonna put new pumps in there, we might want that one down. I don't know, it's a big ask, but I think included in this, and it should be ever evolving, is a plan of the town, of, you know, some forecasting as to where we're going. Thank you.
What you're talking about for, in a campus, not as much for a town, but for a campus, they're required to have what's called a master plan. That's a technical term. As it turns out. Many don't quite have it, but they're pretty good at it. The subbase, it took a dozen years to do it, but we ended up now with a continuing master plan. It's made of silly putty because stuff happens and everything changes, and like at least at any given point, exactly what you're saying. Oh, look, this thing opened up. We've been dying to be able to put a grocery store here for whatever the thought is. The housing is, that's a gap for commercial, for housing. That's not exactly where we want it, but it's close to where we wanted it because we had some kind of big silly putty plan. So I'm all for it, but maybe this is the body that we're putting together here that can slowly over time develop it. What we've got written into zoning does it generally already. In fact, we're now figuring out where can cannabis go, which will then go work backwards to say, and here's where liquor stores can go too, because we've been bad about that. So we can kind of start molding these things down into it without getting too specific, but I completely agree there should be a map that's pretty understandable. But here's where a future train station could be. Here's what we don't have a map that says that right now. Here's where a town green could be. And maybe the developer would say, well, I don't want one there. I said, you don't have to put one there, but that's where it would be good for the town. These are a little different from the zoning map because the zoning just says, here's where all of these things are legal to build. So I think it's a terrific exercise. I don't know if, personally, I would love to just take it on. Other companies just hire a company to go do it. Even the Navy is not that great at it because they bring in all the stakeholders. That's something to be very careful of. The stakeholders are senior chiefs who are going to retire in 3 years and they're having a great time.
All right, so good points. I did add in here, Portia, ensure the decision to be made the long-term strategic plans. And I also added into the town property listing, added potential future uses as well, because part of that listing should probably include that. And as you mentioned, how we can, I think that's a spin-off.
Or
in the
before
future.
offloading a property and putting it up for sale, that we're referring to our master plan. So if the master plan is not going to be defined in this, it might be a group or it's ever evolving and it can be fixed, which I hope it is, but that we're not veering from our plan when a property is, you know, cleared and vacated and we're like, oh, we can sell it. It should go through a process where we make sure that we truly are ready to let it go to an apartment building or whatever.
All right, I'm going to refer back.
Go back to where you're highlighting there. Is that very much I like the order that for that, by the way. I don't think number 7 should be down there at the bottom as far as the order is concerned. So frankly, since all of these other plans that you already have
kind of 1 and 7 are one and the same almost.
I'm thinking, wants to be number one, and maybe even say, especially with R2, eroding resiliency is sustainable, but it's number one, you start there, and then you start working with these other ones beyond it.
We'll work on the alignment. All right, I want to try to get back to the idea of an RFI and get your thoughts. Because I'm a proponent of it, but I don't want to, if you don't think it's something we should do.
Asking a question. It's very specific.
Well, you put questions in the RFI to go out to people to respond. Right.
What are we referring to? I'm sorry, I'm a little lost. RFP?
No, we're going in this right here. We come up with the committee, we go through all this legwork, we submit to here and there, and then we go to the committee. And the committee is hosting a series of meetings, and then we're gonna go to a public hearing. And the thought was, is there something before all this where we send out an RFI to individuals to solicit information? I'm gonna refer back to, because I liked his so this was his suggestion. So maybe just read through this and you see if it's applicable or not.
So an RFI before an RFP.
Yes, I think of the RFI similar to what the Claude Chester, although it wasn't a,
That's a brainstorm.
yeah, brainstorming session.
So it's not RFI for each other. We use it just because it's a specific term in the construction. What would you like to see here is how tall should this thing be?
Yeah, if you make it that specific, right?
That's kind of what RFIs are. So it's
Right.
You need some of the term because it's not an RFI. Asking a question for an answer.
And also the RFP, like, you know, I don't feel like I was ever, like, I don't feel like the town council, and I might be wrong, ever really was a part of the RFP process. I know we have our planning and zoning, you know, our economic development, but I think as the council, as the elected body that represents the community, right, we all live in the town. For example, one of the things I'm very passionate about, as many of you know, I don't think there's enough low-income housing for single mothers with children that don't qualify as low-income seniors. Okay, one that I know of is Branford Manor. It's one subgroup all clustered together, which we are learning with time. It's not good to segregate people of one class in one area. It's kind of really not nice. And our school district had suffered over time before we built those schools with redistricting. Had we spread out our low-income housing, you would have diversified the town. You should not have low-income housing only in one district, one area, that's it. It should be all through the town. And so I just feel like, for example, when a property comes up and we might not get anyone who bites on it, but I feel like the council should be part of that RFP process of saying, you know, I want to see you kind of go up with, you know, mixed income housing, or, you know, like if it's gonna, if it's identified as housing is being needed, like, you know, one of the big things I like out west is that they build structures where you don't know who lives there as to what income they are. Maybe if you go in the apartment, you would notice like, oh, he's got granite, you know, but they hold aside a certain amount of units for low income, medium income, high income. And that's the type of RFP I'd like to see it go out. And I really, as an elected official, haven't had the chance to kind of vote on that and say, yeah, let's send that one out. So I'm not sure where that would be in this document, but I feel like there should be a little bit more collaboration with other stakeholders before going out to RFP. I mean, RFI is something, but I don't know if the RFI would be like casting a wish list within the stakeholders, but we need to do something before it goes out to RFP. Usually what I find out as a counselor is that we put an RFP out and we usually get it when it was down to almost 3, I believe. And I didn't get to see the application process. I didn't get to be part of the questions. And it was just, and here's your final 3, and this is the one we picked as our preferred developer. And then I'm tasked with owning it and selling it and supporting it. I need a little bit more involvement beforehand before I wrap my name on that. So I'm not sure where in this document we do that, or if I'm saying it correctly, but I just think that, like, I would like to be part of a vote or a process of what we're sending out for RFP when we go out for RFP on property.
And I think we did add some information into what you're asking, Portia. And I would say in this section here, there's 4 or 5. But if we need more, this is the place to place it.
Yeah, I didn't know how, I was opening it for discussion to see what you guys thought, you know?
No, I think the council has to do that.
Yeah.
The questions that need to be asked.
Right.
Council needs to be a part of that.
Well, let's read these 4 through 7, because I think what we put together, they are involved. There is a recommendation for the town council on the disposition. The council holds a public hearing. I know one point later on in the process, I have here 1. Town council takes official action, will create a draft RFP for the sale of property utilizing any direction. And I think here, this needs to be, comment for review and approval. I mean, I think this needs here. Council approval is what I'm, yeah, I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? Having the council approve this. Yeah. But again, that's in the RFP process, but I think what we were talking about a minute ago was even prior to this, making sure council's involved. And I think we touch upon a little bit here in 4, 5, 6, 7. But if you want to read through it and strengthen some of the wording, now would be the time
You
to
know,
do it.
it's just hard to support a development when, and we're told, you know, well, once the vote, and the majority voted, and you were in the minority, you know, you can't speak bad about it because, you know, now they're going out for development. It's like, I can't just sign my name, sign, seal, deliver, like on something without knowing. And I feel like I never really got to know why the other ones weren't picked, or even what their master plan was. You know, like, it's just, I think there was 2 counselors last time, and there wasn't really much involvement. I mean, the committee that we're suggesting, I think doesn't trump what comes before the council that we review as a whole body. I really think it has to be, I don't know. I guess like, right now, right, I haven't had a meeting where anyone said, oh, we got all these properties. I'm thinking we need RFPs for this because our master plan for Groton needs this. And this is what we're thinking over time. We haven't even started talking about it. Like, it's just kind of hard to know, where is our direction? What are we doing? And then I'm, you know, on live TV and having to vote. I really don't have the backdrop.
Well, I think that's why we're here, trying to make the process a little better, right?
Yeah. So I'm not sure where that should fit. I don't know if anyone else has.
So the committee's holding a series of meetings, making a recommendation to town council. Town council holds a public hearing, presents the report, gather further citizen comments. Then a second public hearing would be held.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It just gives people the time to kind of, I want to get away from, like, you know, like everybody's against, you know, like, I think if we open that door earlier and get P&Z with us, and there's some collaboration, and they already say to us, you know, that it work hand in hand, work together, not against. and put all the pressure of like, well, we'll promise this and we'll change your zoning, and zoning says, no, you're not, like, then what are we doing? Also, the other thing is that I do feel that what was I gonna say? I lost my wording. The process, I was looking and wondering, like the data center. It was zoned light industrial. We also need to even look at our zoning eventually over time, even though we have a master plan with that. That in my childhood, I never would have thought that we would have a data center in Groton. Not saying we can't, or that I'm against it. I'm not, openly, going one way or the other. But what was light industrial? When that was defined, and you define light industrial, we didn't know what a data center was. So it's almost like sometimes for me, how often is our zoning regulation we looked at based on the new models that are out there? There's new things, new generators, new everything in compared to when that zoning was written. So if somebody wants to come in and use that piece of land and the zoning's older than 10 years, before we approve it, I almost feel like we need to look at, is it zoned correctly? That's a whole other thing.
That's a unique one.
Yeah.
It's incredibly.
Yeah.
Because the term data center could be something in this building, or it could be the size of the town. So anywhere in between. So that's the problem with the term data center, which wasn't, nobody was really keyed into except for people in the field.
Yeah.
And the zone to the zoning officials in defense, even though we're outraged the town came out, but to his defense, he said, from what was presented, it looked like it matched. Therefore, I had no reason to do it. So that's a very unique, specific one where technology got away from us. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of those. And that one, as soon as it came up, that's when it was time for the planning and zoning stuff and say, okay, we're going to fine tune and be more specific. And we just got it fixed. It's got to go for hearing, but we fixed that, plugged the hole that we didn't know we had.
Also, I think though what happens and what I'm getting from correspondence from the community is that they're up against this piece of land and zone this, but the housing in the area has developed and more people are living there, not just the data center, but even along our strip that's considered, like business strip. Behind that, more houses were built recently. Paquonic Road had a few more houses built over there, right? So sometimes I just wonder too, like, what I consider light industrial and what other person might consider light industrial and what it means and, what does each, so it really, that's where the working together piece is going to be very important. So I don't know.
All right, just to group back on the disposition number one, it sounds like we're good with the process, not including the RFI. Do we want here, copy will be provided to the Council Planning and Zoning Commission, RTM, for review, comment, approval? Who are we seeking? Are we seeking approval from all of those parties before going to RFP? Because that could be time consuming.
It doesn't have to be if it's on, once again, if we're only talking about our own personal property, right? I mean, and is that correct? Or we?
Yeah, ground property.
It just doesn't have to be, go through counting all these people, but it can happen simultaneously.
Right.
That's not a series.
Right.
So, me, I look at that and say it's a 1 month process.
Okay, so we'll keep it as is, then everybody's in agreement.
And we don't want to rush on the front end, right? We want to, any good development has time to wait in some aspects. We need to make sure that we're not, like everyone's been informed, everyone's on notice. This is what's happening.
Yeah, and there's plenty of notice, so this is good. And all parties are to approve it, so.
If you want to put a copy of it into the council, simultaneously or concurrently. Sign off. from
Sure.
somebody else.
Okay. All right, good. So this is another subject matter. Are we looking to establish an entire new committee? Because that's how this is reading now. And is that necessary? Or is the committee we have? Because that's what I was asking at the very beginning was, we're going to take all this and all this is what Should I inject all of this information here into the beginning of this current committee and therefore it's covered and we just utilize the same committee?
I'm gonna ask you a question. Why do we have to do it?
Well, that's kind of the
These are
thought.
just notes that I jotted down. Like, I mean, so like,
I'm not saying it's
yeah,
a bad
yeah,
idea.
yeah, these are just brainstorming ideas one night, sitting there, and not knowing what is gonna make it through. I mean, right now, this is all just word sauce that the council is gonna have to vote on, so,
No,
looking
I
at
think it's
other,
great,
you
good
know-
pieces. I'm just wondering if I can take the comments
I
you
mean,
made
is there a
here.
property sale review process that the town has? Do we know?
Well, it's this process. It's
Right, I
gotta
know,
go,
but they don't, like, do they have any outside of that? Like, I mean,
it's gotta go to the council, any
right.
disposable assets.
Yeah, I could work on integrating that if you wanted into that other paragraph by the next meeting, if you wanted me to.
Well, I think this paragraph too, where you added, go ahead. I was gonna say, if you wanted to incorporate, this is
Two.
better wording than where I have it up above, I listed out.
So incorporate, looking at paragraph, was that paragraph 2? Where am we at here? Hold on, let's see.
I have consisting of key stakeholders, including the following, instead of it's how it's stated there.
So under the decision and deposition. okay,
Yeah, have it
so-
be worded similar to how you worded it
And
below.
that section was under. What's the heading? up there?
Disposition 2,
Disposition,
number 2.
number 2.
So that way it's capturing
Yep.
all of your thoughts, but it maintains as one
Yeah,
committee.
I can kind of look at that. I'm willing to do that. And if you guys have any ideas, let me know.
No, I think as long as they merge together, because your
Yeah.
residents, everybody's encumbered on this committee.
Yeah.
And then this is, the same committee before it is forwarded by staff to the council for consideration. Follow it.
Relocate to different things, but I took kind of what I was saying, it's like, well, all we're looking for is having a cross-cultural group together.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Mhm.
In this case, it's two that are, one is Carol, one is you, the other one is what's the RFP.
Yeah, the rest of this is
Right.
all,
Because if the town kind of knows what they want and we talked to planning and earlier, zoning and everybody else early on, council, stakeholders, but everyone's sitting around saying, yeah, we got a good process here. We feel comfortable with moving forward. P and Z is telling us hopefully this looks like it's within specs. Not that there couldn't be changes, but then we know before we make a wish to somebody or offer that we can fulfill that. Is what I hope.
and I think that's the end of the document. I'm not sure what other thoughts there are. I think we just got to fine tune it and wrap it up. Because Lisa wants this
And this-
soon. So the community has,
Yeah.
time to review it by next Wednesday.
And that will be our first real read, so it's not to say that it wouldn't change again, or,
True.
that would be the first read, which,
Well, we want to make it as tight as possible based on the work we did. Make it as,
but I envision that there might be, if we do, as we talked about, bringing some other people on board possibly, after that public, I envision that we might have 1 or 2 more reads, drafts of this, before it's finalized.
yeah, for sure.
But it's a diving board. It's way better than what's been there. And, I really, and this, one of the things I wanted is, one of the things that were said is people, that come here to develop, you want them to want to come here, feel like the town. This document shows by including all of that, that all the stakeholders will work together. And I feel much more confident with that kind of process. Because I'm like, oh, P and Z's involved early, perfect. Oh, the community, the neighborhood where it's being developed, the RTM, the town council, wow. And that's what I envision.
Agreed. Any other thoughts? I don't think we had anything else on the agenda. It was really just working through this document some more.
No.
Comments, thoughts, anyone?
So new business, just under old business, I mean, we just have the
Yeah, I gotta find the
property
agenda.
reuse evaluation process, which we did, right?
Yeah, new business. I don't think we,
Just
Have
I'm
any new
gonna
business?
refine those 2 paragraphs and try to see if I can submit something else. I will try to do that by the weekend, so that you guys have at least a week to see it beforehand. Wait, when are we?
no,
meeting?
it's next. We gotta get out in there.
Oh, a day or two.
It's
All right,
next
I
Wednesday.
will do that.
If you're not able to, I can do it, and send it to you for quick review if you want.
I have some time. I'll do it. I'll send it to you guys before, and then you guys can flush it out, and then, so I'll do that, and then if there's any other,
Yeah, so I'll send this out right now. That will be the current working document. You can work from that.
perfect.
I'll edit all the other pieces except for the paragraph you're working on. And get it out, we get it out, let's say Wednesday. We should get it out by Friday, so the community has the weekend to take a look at it.
Okay.
It's a good goal.
You guys good with that? Yeah, I'll get it out to you by tomorrow then.
Okay, awesome. Appreciate it. All right, well, thank you for your time. Anything else? Appreciate you coming
I'm
out.
gonna vote on the minute to the next meeting, right? You have that under.
Yes, you're gonna add your
Yeah,
pieces. in
I'll
there?
send you,
Yeah, we'll do the minutes at the seventh meeting.
and,
So I don't have anything else. Anyone have any motion?
motion to adjourn.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Oh, we already adjourned, but I'll just say it for the record. I just hope that if we do any more meetings, that we always have it taped, so it's open and transparent for the community.
Yeah, you may want to, I wonder, how are they doing other meetings? Do you know? Yeah, yeah. Fortunately, you're like my mom.